What is up, everybody? Welcome to another fun rain slate. Another race affected by weather. What else is new here? We got some rainstorms coming in. Rain should be ending by 6, 7. There are lights at the track, so I wouldn't be too worried. I know they don't like to do Sunday night races, but it's probably what we're looking at here. Don't think this thing will get shortened. We can go into the night if we really need to. And once the weather subsides here, it should go away. But yeah, good old Midwest for you. A week ago, this forecast was just perfect. Sunny, no chance of weather. But yeah. And yeah, you did call me out here. I was a little tiny bit muted at first, but we get it together. So not a shortened race. We don't have to worry about that kind of like last week, but it will make the practice, which took place in 90+ degree temperatures, maybe not all of that relevant to this race. If it's going to be later in the night, it's going to rain fresh off the track. They've had two races, or they've had the Xfinity race at least in between now and then. Who kind of knows how this will work with the resin they put down the track to try to get some passing going. We saw that did not work at all. At the truck race, we saw Christian Eckes go wire to wire, lead the entire thing. That's kind of one of the things that this track is known for. So let's head on over to where are we at here. Let me go to the track section here. So you'll see here in Nashville, second best track for pole sitters as far as average fast laps and DraftKings fantasy point percentage share, only to Martinsville. We've only raced here 3 times, twice in a next gen car, so that sample size at least is pretty similar to the other tracks. But we had a weak pole sitter in 2021, Eric Almirola, who just got smoked early by Larson, who led that entire 2021 Nashville race. It was all him leading like 260 laps, insane score. The last 2 races here, we've actually seen multiple guys leading 80+ laps. I think like both times you had 3 people lead 50 or more laps. So it's been a little bit more spread, but it's kind of about strategy and restarts here, because it's sort of the only way to gain spots on the track once things get going. If there's a green flag run that goes, these cars get pretty spread out, and it's hard to pass people, especially the leader in clean air. So yeah, Nashville very, very favorable to the pole sitter. We kind of see it here in the DraftKings average by start. The pole sitter, of course, has gone crazy here, getting 90+ points in 2 out of 3 races. Again, we don't want to lean into this too much with not very many races of data to go off of, but one thing I'm seeing is, the lap leaders here. You've had one guy just crush this entire race, but for the most part, the people are running top 5. The guys that started top 5, like the field gets really straightened out quickly, and this can be a very boring race, but the cautions will breed cautions if it comes to that. I think last year the caution prop was at 10.5, but we only got 4 cautions overall, 2 of them for stages. This year it's at 7.5, so a bit more of an expectation of a green flag racing like we saw last year. With this rain pushing things up, who knows? But yeah, a lot of the slip and sliding, especially on the restart and stuff, kind of a side effect of the very hot conditions. With the track being cooler, who knows, it may go a little bit more green than expected. But yeah, these trends don't mean a whole lot with only 3 races. Probably best to go through it like race by race here. So you had Ross Chastain starting the pole, and you'll notice 3 guys with an average running position better than 4 guys with Byron there, who got taken out with like a few laps to go, I think. This one kind of had a normal race until the very end where there were some cautions. But yeah, you had 4 guys running in the top 5, so you can expect to see just the best guys running up front, chilling with each other for very, very long periods of times. All the stages are pretty similar in length. Pit strategy is big, but again, no one could really get past these cars. They were chilling up front. Yeah, Chastain did it off the pole. Denny Hamlin started 8th, worked his way up to 3rd place finish, led 81 laps. We got him on the pole again. And I think if we go back to 2022, we had, Hamlin on the pole like we have today, led 114. Bunch of fast laps. You had Kyle Busch, of course, coming from the very rear, finishing 21st and getting the second most fantasy points because he had a pretty good chunk of dominator points within that. So him starting in the rear, it actually worked out for him. But what we don't see, at least from what I've been gleaming here, is we don't see guys starting in the rear on really bad teams like the shitters. We don't see that kind of value come through. Maybe with a race that has more cautions that could come through, but it's really looking like this is pretty standard, almost like a bigger Martinsville, where it's just about who's out in front, and it's very, very, very hard to pass. So going to the correlations tab here, this one's pretty important. 3 tracks really stick out, and there's kind of a theme to the tracks that stick out, and it's going to be multi-grooved intermediate tracks for the most part. So you've got Dover, Kansas, and Las Vegas correlating the highest. Dover makes sense, especially this last Dover race. We're going to be looking at the last Dover race a lot because it's using the intermediate package that they'll be using here. But Nashville is a concrete track, 1.33 miles, so very, very similar to Darlington, which is also a concrete track. But the only other concrete tracks we've got are Bristol, which is too small and like too high a banking to really be all that corollary, and Dover. Dover comes in as the highest correlating, a very high number here. And Kansas as well, because Kansas also races in sort of a multi-groove style, where the fastest cars are very much able to get up front, and we see that high correlation of qualifying into race speed. Except there are a lot of lead changes at Kansas, and there really aren't at Nashville, but we kind of see the same sort of guys do well. And a lot of these tracks are pretty similar looking on other tracks as well. So they have a lot of cross correlation there. But just keep this in mind. The kind of the races we're going to be looking at, of course, like a Homestead rate's really high, but we can't really look at that because that was last year. So we're going to kind of want to have some more recency by we'll probably look at Charlotte over a Homestead, even though it correlates a little bit lower, but this whole range here is pretty much the same. I really just want to point out Las Vegas, Kansas, and Dover here for being pretty high in that regard. So here's the field, and you'll notice right away pretty big split here in practice. Look at the fastest practice times. Oh my gosh, Group A was significantly faster. So one of these tabs here, this one went through and kind of adjusted to compensate for Group B just being slower overall to kind of bring it more in line. And the guys we saw in practice were Ty Gibbs, who was also the fastest in Xfinity practice, ended up leading a bunch of that race until he kind of had a poor pit stop, ended up back in 4th, I think, at stage 2, and then got spun out, ended up not having the best finish there, 60% chalk or 60% owned chalk bomb. But he's fast again here. He's been pretty good at the intermediate tracks all season, and JGR right now is even odds to win to the rest of the field. So it's kind of JGR versus the field here, with Hamlin on the pole and Truex looking really good. Ty Gibbs obviously looking really fast. Keselowski is interesting. He qualified 5th. It would look like, let me see here. If you just go off of the raw numbers, you look at Keselowski, like 10th on the board, that's pretty neat. But with him being in Group B, that's actually a lot of speed. And you can see he's finished top 3 at the last intermediate track. So someone you definitely don't want to forget about down there in the 8K range. That could be really nice. And then, Hamlin and Corey Heim. This is an interesting one. Corey Heim's going to be in a third 23XI entry. And we've only seen him replace Eric Jones so far. And we know how awesome he is in trucks and the few starts we've seen from him in Xfinity. So that should be an interesting one to look out for. But it just seems like Toyotas have speed overall. The same with Ford. And really, the only Chevy we see doing pretty well here is like Chastain, which makes sense because he's done extremely well here before. But not not a lot of love for the Hendrick guys speed wise, but again, this practice, don't want to make too much of it with it being a very, very different track to what we'll probably end up getting after the rain dries off. So let's see how that goes. A little reminder, last week we took down we tied for the biggest takedown in Xfinity Series race last week. This week so far, it's been really interesting with all the chalk bombs and trucks and just needing a bunch of Ekkas. And then yesterday, again, sometimes it's not about who you think is going to be leading these laps, but just who ends up out there, because those dominators really do rack up a ton of points. And we had 3 dominators that are all under 20% owned yesterday in the Xfinity race. And yeah, we had, everyone was on Gibbs. So the Xfinity and the Truck Series overall has been way, 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 way more carnagey than the Cup race at this track. So we shouldn't expect to use those as like a pure on like precedent of what to expect here. But it's worth noting. Yeah, again, the weather, cool. Back to the slate here, though, because we're going to start up top with Kyle Larson. He opened up as the favorite. Right now, at least on DraftKings Sportsbook, he's tied with Denny Hamlin. I added the stages fun prop. Thank you, Bet365, for putting them out. I think they put out last week and this week. Maybe it's something to do with NBC coverage. I don't know, but I'm glad they brought this one back, because this is kind of a huge prop to look at. So I've already adjusted it into implied percentages and adjusted for rake. So this is balanced. And this is the true percentage chance that each driver has to win stage 1, stage 2, at least per their odds. So yeah, you've got Hamlin as a slight favorite over Larson. Larson going to be a bit heavy in the betting market overall, but this season, of course, we've seen the flashes from him at the intermediate tracks, but he's had some more struggles than he's had in previous years here in the next gen car. But it's been a top 5 car overall here at Nashville, but that 2021 race kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to like his average lead laps, fast laps. We can see that since we switched to the next gen car, he has not led a lap, and I think he has like 10 or 11 and 12 fast laps in his 2 races. So, and starting in a similar spot to where he's starting now. So he's going to be heavily owned. He's still going to be someone that people are going to go to a lot with that co-favorite spot. And honestly, if you look at the tracks that correlate highly to this track, Kansas, Dover, Darlington, he was doing well in this race until he got taken out, right? Las Vegas, like he rates out perfectly for this track. And yeah, he has the all top 5s here. It's just the 2023 and 2022 races here, he's been just not leading laps. It's been a bit of a step behind the Toyotas, and that's what the practice times would likely suggest. So while Larson and Hamlin are both kind of co-favorites up here, it seems like for DraftKings, Hamlin is kind of by far the top dominator pick this week, and his price props pick is insane. It's like 88.5 projected fast laps and like in the 40s for fast laps. Like, it's an insane projection. Like, we put in like that 85 and that like 43. Like 75 fantasy points right there if he just finished his top 5. Pretty insane. The Hamlin he's had some struggles over the last few weeks. Back-to-back, just weird situations, whatever. But he's bounced back thoroughly. We've been at the short tracks recently, but we're going back to the intermediate tracks. Gateway, I wouldn't consider the strongest. It's kind of like its own sort of thing. It's very weird and doesn't correlate well with the other intermediate tracks. And then Charlotte, you had the kind of the rainy conditions there, but this stretch here from like 2 months ago, Darlington, Kansas, Dover, Texas, that really awesome month and a half of intermediate track racing that we got to have over the spring and summer. Really good times. We're going to be kind of looking to that chunk of the season a good amount here. But yeah, it's been a while. We have had back-to-back short tracks, road course in there. So it's good to be back to the intermediates here, especially for Larson, who seems to be doing better on that package for sure. But yeah, Hendrick not up there with JGR. JGR is like even odds to win. I think Hendrick's like plus 250 or something. And then like Penske's like third with like plus 700. JGR the clear favorite here. Larson, it's weird that he's like the most expensive, but DraftKings kind of just does that for him, and he still gets ownership either way. So, yeah, Hamlin's going to be the preferred option here. Of course, in the B group, his speeds here were actually like among the best. Like I think he had like the best fast lap speed if you adjust for it. But yeah, starting on the pole, you saw how ridiculously good the pole was here. 5 straight top 5 finishes at intermediate tracks. Probably the safest driver, really. Had the pole start in 2022, led a bunch of laps, finished 6th, 3rd last year. The strongest play on the board, probably also the chalkiest play on the board. I think almost certainly he's going to be the highest owned. But it's for good reason here, because this is like the second best track for pole sitters on DraftKings. Christopher Bell, very interesting one here. Your winner at Charlotte, absolutely smashed at Charlotte. It's quite good at Gateway too. Now he's been crushing these short tracks recently, and that's no surprise. But intermediate tracks have been very, very hit or miss for him. You saw last season at the end, he got on a real good stretch there. Runner up at Las Vegas, winner at Homestead, and those are some corollary tracks this place. But you'd see the beginning of the season during that stretch, he was having a very rough time on the pole in a couple of these races, just not finishing well. But at Charlotte, he definitely turned it around, dominated at low ownership, and has been in just overall really good form. Yeah, just a great stretch of form for him right now, and at all sorts of different track types after, rocky start to the season with a lot of DNFs. But here at the intermediate tracks, his odds are right there with like Truex, who's starting way further back. Hamlin definitely favored over him, so he's priced up. He's starting 3rd, so I mean, starting up front is helpful here. I think you'll want to get some pieces of him, but I'm probably shooting to be just a bit under the field here. I think people are going to have a bit of recency bias towards Bell. And then Martin Truex Jr., so he rates out really, really well overall. This track type, he's been kind of crushing it this season. The finishes haven't really been there, right? But if you look over here, he's averaging, Nashville, he's done a lot of work, put in, led a lot of laps, a lot of fast laps. This season, at the intermediate tracks hasn't been the best, but the correlating tracks in next gen, he's done really, really well at. And also just, a rain delayed race with like changing conditions, a night race, that all works in Truex's favor big time. He's great with changing track conditions. If we were still racing on a really, really hot, like 94-degree surface, I'd be way more interested in Bell, because I think he thrives in those conditions. With it being a low cooler, I think it benefits someone like Truex, especially if the race goes on to the night. But yeah, starting back in 17th, he has the nice combo of place differential upside plus potential lead lap upside as he works his way through the field. For stage 2, he's the 4th favorite to win stage 2. So by stage 2, you figure he'll be factoring in moving his way up front. He's got pretty good odds in that respect. And yeah, he's jumped up since after qualifying, despite qualifying in 17th and Bell qualifying 3rd. He has better odds than Christopher Bell. Also, long run speed in practice. He probably had like the best long run speed of everyone. So he stands to benefit from long green flag runs without caution. There's a strategy I like to use on some of these races, and I might use it this week, where I run the domination station that you can access at dfsarmy.com, promo code TACO A. You can run it twice. And I think a good strategy for running it twice is run like 70% of your lineups expecting like a green flag race. And in those, I would give someone like Truex a bump. I'd give the people who have long run speed a bump. I'd give the people that are starting up high a bump, good at holding track position, that sort of thing. And then in the other 30% or whatever percent I end up doing the Carnage lineups in, where I'm expecting wrecks, because it's not guaranteed that this thing's just green the entire way. We could have like 3 consecutive cautions. It could look like the Truck Series out there with the way these restarts are. These restarts are highly aggressive, and there's even potential for a pileup. So probably more like 20% of lineups I'll run, and I'll have these deep place differential guys in there. Definitely bumping up the place differential guys overall. And then maybe not as much love on guys that need these long green flag runs, like a Truex, probably a Hamlin fade in there for getting off of that chalk, hoping it's like Gibbs yesterday. So that's just a strategy I like to use in a race like this. Chase Elliott has been finishing really well. He has like good form. Yeah, just overall, he's been in pretty good form this season, which has put him like up near the top in points, and he has the win at Texas locking him in. So he's got like one of the best average finishes overall. But intermediate tracks, it's been really shaky. Texas, he won because all of these guys wrecked, and they're all better than him. But when everyone wrecks, and you're like the 7th best dude, but the top 6 guys have wrecked, then you can win at Texas like Chase Elliott did. I really don't see his upside here starting 13th. That price should be mid 8Ks for Elliott here, so 9.7. Quite ridiculous. It's due to just recency bias and recent form. I mean, his odds are pretty decent for an intermediate track race, and he does have a good history here, like top 4. He has a win in 2022 and a 4th place finish in 2023. But at both of those races, he started up front and was up front all race and showed speed in practice. Here he hasn't really shown much speed. Starting back in 13th, I think he's going to be more of like I wouldn't call him like a Bowman type play. Maybe Bowman with a little bit more upside. Really similar to like Byron here. I'm expecting these guys to run between like 5th and 10th and not really factor in a whole lot. And that kind of sums up what I feel about Byron here. Byron, I just generally don't like on DraftKings because he's allergic to fast laps. He doesn't push for lead laps aggressively. The intermediate track finishes were awesome last year. This season, it's been a whole other story. Hendrick seems to be just a slight step down than where they were when the season was early, and they were pretty fast, these intermediates. He strikes me as someone that's just going to run 5th or 6th all race and have an okay finish, but I really don't see the upside potential with him. Starting 7th, I think there are just too many of these good drivers ahead of him to block him out from really being worth all that much, kind of like he's been a lot recently. Ryan Blaney at 9.3, technically 2nd in practice, but highly inflated there. He's been atrocious when it comes to finishing races. I think he's 16th in, we can see it right here. So like average finish, right? He's not good. He's down there. He's, he's 16th, right? But average running position at intermediate tracks, he's 5th. So probably due for some positive regression there. But he's priced up because he's been running really well at the short track. So a similar situation to what we're saying with Elliott here. But he does have some place differential upside. And his odds are pretty good compared to everyone else in this range. So he makes for a pretty okay play. He's very comparable to Ross Chastain here at 9K, who's really, really good at this track. Runner-up, 5th, winner here last year. Led 100 off the pole, was the highest scoring fantasy play. So he's tied for 3rd favorite with Bell and Truex here. He looks like the most competent Chevy of the bunch over all the Hendrick guys, except for Larson, of course. And he's starting way back in 20th. So you could argue that he has that combo that Truex has of place differential upside with lap leading upside. He is averaging, 35 lead laps and 21 fast laps here. He qualified way higher in those races. So those numbers are going to surely be significantly lower with him starting at 20th. Very hard to check your way up here. But we've seen really good drivers starting in the 20s be good place differential. We just haven't really seen the guys starting in the 30s on the mid-level to bad teams score well like at all. So Chastain has a lot of upside, and I see him getting kind of popular, although his form isn't really that great. But at this track, surely he's quite good. Tyler Reddick is an interesting one because he has horrible finishes here. His best finish is 18th, although this 30th place finish is super misleading. He was running top 5 for about 95% of this race and just got screwed at the end with the cautions at the end. So sometimes the end of these races can be messy, and it turns a race that was green flagged the whole way into kind of a carnagey mess at the end, especially if a bunch of people are on the lead lap. But unfortunate for Reddick. He may be a little bit sneaky because of that. But he rates out really well at the tracks that correlate to this one. Like, he had really good runs at Charlotte, Dover, Texas, Las Vegas. He was by far the second best track, or the second best car on the track, only behind Larson, who he couldn't get around. Like, these steeper intermediate tracks are kind of his bag. He's third best in the entire field and fourth best in the entire field in average running position at intermediate tracks. And we saw last year, especially, him having top 5 in race winning upside at these intermediate tracks. Definitely better than he's been at the short tracks. And I feel like he's been at so many tracks recently over the last month he's just not good at. So his price has come down. I feel like maybe it should be in the low 9s. Like, he should be where Elliott and Byron Blaney are here, with just how good he is typically at intermediate tracks. But his odds have dropped down despite qualifying 6th, which is a little concerning. Also, not like the fastest of the Group A guys, didn't take as many laps. But yeah, he just kind of makes for a good alternate sort of dominator play. There are kind of a lot of plays in this 8K range that are great for your second or third dominator option. Moving on down to Keselowski, as I mentioned earlier, he's second only to Gibbs, first in long run speed. Now, knowing Keselowski, of course, he's going to probably try to strategize the crap out of this. But you can see he's been doing a masterful job of that. 3 straight finishes in the top 3. It's highly impressive. Average running position of 15th, but average finish of 8.9 is absurd. Dude's just a racer. He knows how to race for sure. And yeah, I kind of like attacking the practice times if that car really is fast. Yeah, we just need the track to get a little hotter to kind of emulate that. But still, 8.5. He's another one of these good kind of options here. I sort of skipped over Joey Logano because, I kind of want to. He's starting 26, but it's just not the place differential play I want to attack here, because with Blaney and Chastain, Truex, these are good guys because they have upside when it comes to lead laps, fast laps. Logano is allergic to fast laps, both at this track and just this season altogether. He's averaging less than 1, less than 3 lead laps. The dude is just not competitive at this track type, and they're very open about that. He finally got a top 5 at Gateway, where Penske was just ultra fast across the board. With him and with Cindric winning, you had Blaney, who finished 24th, but he should have won the race. He just ran out of gas on the last lap, so that's a misleading finish there. Yeah, you got to give it up to Logano. This finish kind of a fluke here. He's been really finishing outside of the top 10, and really just strikes me as a 15th place car here, 26th to 15th. It doesn't do much. I guess the floor is okay. Maybe he's playable in cash games, I guess, but I don't like him for GPP. I don't feel like there's very much upside to be had here. But I do think optimizers will like him a bit just because the place differential gives him an okay mean projection, but I would much prefer the guys around him in this range, like Keselowski, Reddick, that have actual lap leading domination upside that Logano severely lacks here. Because I'm trying to win a tournament. I'm not just trying to score well. Ty Gibbs at 8,400. Kind of talked about him earlier. Fastest in practice, even when you adjust. He was mad fast. Just like in the Xfinity race. The Xfinity race, he was fine. Perfectly fine. Got out in clean air, and the clean air just did clean air stuff. He was never going to be touched, even with cautions. But yeah, the bad pit kind of screwed him over, made him lose the lead. And once he lost the lead, he got spun out and was kind of never the same again for that race. But still impressive. I like that he got laps. We also saw Reddick, Chastain, and Reddick, Chastain, and Nemechek who ended up winning the race, also getting some laps yesterday, which is nice. This isn't a track we've been to a ton. It's nice to go out there and get some Xfinity laps. But yeah, $8,400, and now that he's jumped to 12 to 1. I think he's going to be a pretty popular play, especially with the trends we're seeing, like the big odds movement we're seeing here. Only $8,400, very cheap way to get JGR, as is usually the case. But Darlington, similar sized concrete, very similar track to Nashville here. We saw Ty Gibbs runner up there, and he's been doing like well. Look at Dominator points here at just the tracks that kind of matter the most to this race. Look at Ty Gibbs. He's gotten, he's got at Charlotte. He was the third Dominator at Charlotte, fourth at Phoenix. Looks like he was third, just barely the third Dominator at Darlington. We ended up finishing really well at. So he's shown that upside. Fifth at Las Vegas. Really, really struggled this track type last year, but he's figuring it out for sure. It seems to be pretty good at this track. I think this was one of his better intermediate track finishes last year, so should definitely look to improve here this year. And yeah, he's one of the top 5, top 6 favorites to win Stage 1, despite starting 8th, which is a pretty good sign for him moving forward. And above 50% implied top 10 finish odds. Also nice to see here, and he should rack up some fast laps for sure with that JGR speed. Chris Buescher, man, another play who's actually not that bad with the adjustments here. So he could be an interesting play just because he's $8,300, kind of looking similar to where he's been over the last few weeks. Like no one's playing him. Not a track that's been good to him at all. His best finish, 18th here. He's actually got poor track history to the point where I am a little bit concerned. I could kind of get over it with like Reddick, who at least has one race where he really ran well here. I mean, Blaney, these are just like quick wrecks. Doesn't really matter. Had that great run or finished third. Like he's the first guy where I look and go, man, that track history does kind of suck. And we saw that last week at New Hampshire. Horrifyingly bad track for him, but they really wanted to test out those wet tires, so they waited a few hours and put on the wet tires, and Buescher had been running like crap all week. Ended up really liking him, being fast and being a top 5 finisher, so that was a little bit tilting that happened because, yeah, he's not good at that track by any means. He's kind of a bit of a slave to track history and a lot of these tracks, so I'm not too bullish on Mr. Buescher. The only thing I like is this low ownership number and the low price has gotten down to, because like I'm playing his teammate plenty starting 5th. And we saw the runner-up finish at Kansas, which was awesome. It's one of the highest correlating tracks to this one, but that was a bit more not entirely luck, but he was not like a second place running car that race for sure. Just strikes me as someone that's going to finish like 10th to 12th and just not do a whole lot here, but maybe it's like a single entry contrarian type play. You could do some Buescher to get different. A real contrarian play this week would be Kyle Busch. I don't know what to make of this guy at this point. He's 8,200, which is crazy. He actually has pretty good history at this track. The last 2 races in the next gen, averaging 33 lead laps, 36 fast laps. It's the third highest of anyone in the field. It's kind of impressive, but the intermediate track package has been better to him. He had the 3 straight top 10s here, but his recent form is, I mean, I don't have to say anything. He's been horrendous lately, absolutely horrendous, but we're not that far removed from him finishing top 10 at Kansas, right? So last week, not many people have been playing him because of concerns, and he hasn't been qualifying the worst, but last week he ended up being the chalk, qualifying way back in the rear at a track he's good at, and lo and behold, once again, failure. I think that's going to leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, and he's more expensive now. You would almost figure he'd be in the $7K range by now with how bad his form is and how bad RCR has looked. And I think it's that way in FanDuel. He's dropped a lot on FanDuel. Not too fast in practice. One of the lower guys in the B group. But yeah, $8,200. His ownership projection, I don't know where this could be like 15%. This could be like 25% if people just go, whatever, and forget about last week. I don't know. This one's kind of up for debate. Could be all over the place, but if you do get him at really low ownership, it's not the worst play. His teammate Austin Dillon is actually showing speed. Qualified 11th. He didn't show any speed in practice, but he did qualify 11th. It was top 10 at Gateway. He's shown a little bit of upside recently. It's just Kyle Busch, like he's just wrecked out of 3 of the last 4 races. Certainly due for positive regression, but I feel like I've said that a few weeks in a row. I mean, eventually it'll come, but also, yeah, he's a bit of a mental case at the moment. So don't go too crazy on him. Alex Bowman, if you faded him every race this year, you're perfectly fine. You can see the dude's upside clearly is just running like 7th to 9th. Starting 12th, that score's okay, but I just really don't see where his upside is going to come. I don't know how he would ever make an optimal lineup unless this is an absolute shit show. And yeah, he's ran poorly here in all of his races. Just nothing to like from Bowman. I'm probably not going to play him at all, as I usually do. Bubba actually rating out well. He was asked about which tracks suit him well here in the near future. He really only said Chicago. He was kind of brushing off this track because he doesn't expect a whole lot here at a place that is best finish. Like he's never finished in the top 10 here, but he does have a lot of tracks he's really good at. Some big ovals, which is kind of a specialty in Indianapolis, where he's incredible at historically. Pocono coming up here. He actually rates out pretty decently because there's no real standout plays in this range. So his projection is actually fine. Starting 24th, he has plenty of top 5 or top 15, if not top 10 upside, but he doesn't have top 5 upside. Good short run speed, so maybe someone that could benefit if there's more cautions. He'd be a guy I'd run more in the carnage lineups than in the safe ones for sure. Yeah, so he doesn't really strike me as much, but they're just not very many great value plays this week, so he kind of becomes more in play than I would guess at first. Josh Berry starting second. He's jumped all the way up to 14-1, which is notable. Reminds me of the Iowa race where, again, comparing Iowa and Nashville, not the smartest thing to do, I guess, but qualified third at Iowa, very surprising. Everyone wrote him off, and he actually ended up fighting his way up to the lead, leading 30 laps. Him and Rodney Childers are certainly auditioning for a spot next season. They really need they would like to stay together, hopefully. They've been talking with a lot of teams. But yeah, this team clearly has some speed right now. They've been overperforming. Third at Darlington, really great run there. 10th at Charlotte, had that immediate wreck at Gateway, which was kind of whatever, but and we could ignore these kind of spot starts and Hendrick equipment from last year. Again, it was at a lot of the corollary tracks, which he also did not run very well at early in the season. That was kind of before the news. Ever since this news came out, I swear it's like Stuart Haas has just kind of ran differently, and Barry's done phenomenally. Starting up in the front row, like it's some great track position to have. He's got to hang in the top 10 right now. He's got the 51% implied top 10 odds, which is not bad at all. But he probably has to finish more in like the top 7 or lead laps, one of the two, in order to make some value here. Because even though we're getting down towards the value plays, yeah, he's still 7-7. Like he's on the high end of 7K. He's hit a price bump recently, a well-deserved one at that. Daniel Suarez should be one of the go-to place differential plays here. His teammate, defending race winner here, he has never finished outside of the top 15 at this track. Pretty good track for Trackhouse racing overall. Who does Trackhouse have connections with? It would be Colleague, who is also really fast here, was crazy good with Allmendinger here last year. Also incredible in Xfinity here. I think Chandler Smith, dominated most of the Xfinity race last year in a Colleague car, and AJ Allmendinger in a Colleague car ended up winning the race. And then Truck Series, they got the connection to, or Colleague has the connection to Nice. Nice insanely fast at this track. You saw Honeycutt flying up through the field before his engine exploded. The year before, we had Chastain winning. I think Chastain won this season at Darlington, I think, and that was the car that Honeycutt was flying around in. So just a lot of good news for that team overall. Daniel Suarez. So just great track history here. He has the 4 straight really bad finishes at intermediate tracks, and is just also not looking that great in practice odds-wise. So he's got that against him, and also the fact that deep place differential typically doesn't do all that well here, but he seems like one of the absolute best options on the slate because, again, a lot of weeks we have very, very obvious plays, and we know who to play here. This week it's kind of one of those weeks where some of the better plays are really risky, and no one feels really safe in like the 7, 6, 5K range, and it kind of makes okay plays turn into great plays just by proxy. And that's kind of what's happening to Daniel Suarez here. So he's in good enough equipment, I think, to where he could defy the odds and move forwards and not get lapped. But he definitely stands to benefit if there are cautions in this race. Chase Briscoe starting too high, looked really horrible in practice. I don't know what's up with that, but I would rather play him at short and flat tracks. This is not the track type I care about Briscoe at. Gragson, 7,300. Now, he has shown upside, especially early in the season at some of the corollary tracks, like the corollary tracks, Las Vegas, Dover, Kansas, top 10s. Very impressive. Same odds as Briscoe, which is a little bit weird, even though he's starting further ahead and was better in practice, although not really. He was in that A group, so where's Grags? Yeah, he's actually towards the bottom. So he has one of the most misleading practice times overall, but he did take the most laps, which is nice. I do like to see that. So Briscoe, I'm not really playing much of at all, maybe like 1% in big MME, but Gragson, I will actually have a good look at because he does have that upside. And he's capable of top 10 finishes like these. And of course, we can ignore all this. Just a reminder, ignore all this. This was in shitty legacy equipment at the time. Moving on down to Corey Heim. This is a pretty big play here. Open at 66, has dropped a little bit to 70, but pretty much know what we expect out of Corey here. We actually don't. Okay, so he's actually faster than his teammate. But he's up there with a lot of the fast Toyotas. So this is a third 23XI car under the TMT or the Money Team name, which we've seen. We've seen them have some terrible cars that barely work and fall apart at like super speedways and stuff. But this is like an in-name only thing. This is a 23XI Toyota, and this is definitely a big-time tryout for Heim. Heim 5th fastest in practice, 8th in long run. Very impressive for someone in this range. Now, he has the 2 runs this season at Dover and Kansas, where he was subbing in for Eric Jones. I usually don't like to judge people all that much from like spot starts or starts that they hadn't been planning for, but like substitution spots, because they're really just doing them a service. The car is set up for Eric Jones. They probably didn't want to change the car too much to set it up for Heim. It's very much Eric Jones's car, and it's not been the greatest car this season overall to be in. 22nd, 25th. This is just him doing his job, keeping his head down, and finishing respectfully, not wrecking the equipment. Did a fine job there at Kansas and Dover. Great job. This is his tryout. This is, okay, we see you crushing the truck series on a regular basis. It's been Heim time for a while, ever since Zane Smith left trucks. Comes up to the Xfinity series in a few spots, overperformed significantly. It's time to get him out in the Cup series in a fast Toyota, and we'll see how he does. So he's going to rate out as one of the best plays in this range for sure, starting 29th with one of the best practice times. Of course, the downside is like his floor is like negative because he's inexperienced. When these guys come in, they have very limited Cup Series laps. This is a very, very, very tricky pit road. I could see Heim getting like 1 or 2 pit road penalties. We see that all the time with new drivers or drivers from the lower series that aren't used to the exact rules of the Cup Series, especially with limited practice, with them only having 20 minutes of practice out there. This is going to be a hard spot for Corey Heim, but he has the equipment to have a top 20, if not more. He has upside for maybe even borderline top 10, which is way more than enough. We just want him to get into the top 20 here in this spot, maybe the top like 18 to solidify value. But yeah, he seems his car is certainly capable of it. He, of course, is just going to be a risky play. Probably not cash safe, honestly, because I really don't like running what are basically rookies, first timers in cash, even if it's someone that has a lot of truck experience, like Corey Heim has a lot of experience with Toyota. It's still not a safe enough spot. I'd rather go with the Suarez, rather go with the Gilliland Jones, because at least I know what I'm going to get out of them for the most part, and I know that they're going to do a pretty good job of avoiding carnage. Is where Heim is likely to be in carnage if there is carnage, but he does stand to benefit if this thing goes green, because this car is fast enough. I don't see it getting lapped really, even though it's starting 29th. Yeah, anyone starting like worse than him is probably in like direct danger to get lapped. So Heim, strong GPP play. Cindric starting 10th. He won a gateway, which is neat. And has a 7th place here. But it's just the rest of this I literally cannot ignore. He's been so bad at intermediates outside of gateway, which Penske is just unstoppable at gateway, apparently. He's up to 7K now. His odds have moved up to be right there with like Heim, but I don't see how he's going. I don't see how he's going to make value here. Even if, like, say he holds on and finishes 10th, it's like 36, right? If he doesn't do anything, it's like 34. I don't see that really being optimal. But I do see him drifting back a few spots. These practice times are inflated on all these guys being in Group A. I'm an Austin Cindric hater. I definitely wear that on my sleeve, so take that into consideration if you're listening to this, but I'm not going to be playing Cindric here starting 10th. I'd rather play McDowell starting 14th if I'm going to take an overqualified guy, because at least he's been able to do some things like these top 10s at Darlington and Kansas, the high corollary tracks here. And he's got a surprise amount of lead and fast laps this season. He's averaging 12 lead laps per 300 laps and about 6 fast laps, which is pretty darn good for someone in the 6K range. So starting too high, I'm not going to like this play, but I'm actually going to play some McDowell, as where Cindric, I'm not really, I think, like, he's going to be like 1%. McDowell will be like 6%. Still going to be kind of an underweight play with where they're starting, but you know, you got to stay on the lead lap, won't be lap traffic. Just needs to kind of hang on, which he's capable of, I think. Now, Todd Gilliland, his teammate, McDowell's 100 to 1 is where Gilliland's 250 to 1, even though Gilliland's been running better and was faster in practice. It's a little interesting. So he has 4 straight finishes of 17th or better intermediate tracks. Before that, his form was horrendous, but yeah, he's really turned it around as of late. The Penske helped doing some good things here. Not the best Penske track here, so that may bring him back a little bit, but starting 32nd, some of these finishes, he did start in the 30s and work his way up there. He has that upside for sure. So I don't mind Gilliland if we're in a carnage situation here. Again, be very careful with these guys starting in the 30s. Most likely they're going to be lap traffic, but again, this range is so unforgiving with either guys that qualify too high or just risky place differential plays. It's going to be hard to really know where to go here. Eric Jones does not have the form that Gilliland has. He's been thrown off a little bit since his injury. 19th at Darlington is pretty bad for his standards. He's won twice there at Darlington, constantly a top 10 threat, regardless of the equipment he's in. You could tell he's a little bit slow, a bit slower than he has been since coming back from this injury. But I like they were getting back to the bigger ovals with Jones. He's been at a lot of short tracks recently that have not suited him well. And this track historically has suited him pretty well. 11th and 8th place finishes in the next gen cars here. Really good for Jones. 150. This is something we've been seeing at like 400 to 1, 500 to 1, these shorter tracks. So nice little bounce back spot for Jones. Of course, starting 34th. Very risky. Gonna need some carnage, or is just going to need to be really fast. Of course, he's way slower than Gilliland. Just heads up. He's down there. He's been down like here at the very bottom of the practice speeds over the last several weeks. So yeah, I'd say that Gilliland is probably a safer play than Jones here, but Jones does have that strong track history going for him. Although I don't think he started back in 34th for either of those finishes. But in this range, it's got to be AJ Allmendinger that wins this range. And it's not who I was expecting to be the best when looking at this lineup for the first time, but it is real and true. So yeah, he's running part-time now. He was running full-time for Colleague a year ago. Obviously, the Colleague cars are in a worse spot now than they had been, but Dinger usually comes back for road courses only. We did see him at Dover, the highest correlating track to this one. He ran 13th, and his average running position was actually better than where he finished. His average running position was 12th. Very strong run for him there. So while we've seen the guys replacing Dinger in this car be really bad, Dinger himself actually is quite good. He's jumped up to 100 to 1, was top 10 at this track last year, and also very fast. Like 5th at Homestead. Like he had good top 15 upside in this car last year in this track type. And he's really sticking out as the king among peasants in this value range down here. You got Stenhouse, who, 2022, 2023, his intermediate track performance was much better than the short track package. That has flipped, apparently, because now he is no top 15s and 7 tries at intermediate tracks, but he's actually been putting up some top 10s at short tracks. Starting 23rd, just not a fan. Starting a bit too high. I know he has the 6th place finish here back from 2021, but realistically, I don't see him getting into the top 15 here. Not a fan of this play. Hocevar, we've been on a lot recently at these short tracks, starting 20th every week. But starting up in 15th now. And yeah, we've seen good finishes from him at Gateway, Texas, Las Vegas. He's not totally out of play, but with him sitting at 250 to 1, and overall just him having more upside at short tracks than these bigger tracks, I think that will kind of hurt him in this spot. I'm not a big fan here. Ryan Preece also don't plan on playing him much at all in this really uncertain dead horse Stuart Haas ride here that's not even in his track type. Just nah. Nemechek is like the ultimate desperation place differential play. So he won in Xfinity, had a terrific race. That's great, but this equipment is only so good. He's 400 to 1. He is an extreme risk to get lapped early. Just with him starting the rear of the field, this has not been a forgiving track for guys starting in the rear. So Nemechek, I don't even know if I'd play him in cash, honestly. No, I'd rather just play like an Allmendinger or something. Haley will get to, but there are very few plays you can really play down here, and that's what puts Nemechek in play, but it's still a very unsavory play. You would have to just pray that there's some carnage or something. Austin Dilling starting 11th. What are we doing here? He's had a couple top 10s. This season has finished pretty consistently 12, 13, 14. That's like where the Austin Dillon of old would finish at every intermediate track, but it's been highly inconsistent this year. Qualified 11th, but showed no speed in practice, and his teammate is Kyle Busch. That team is like kind of a dumpster fire right now. There ain't no way I'm touching him starting 11th here. This is just a no-go. Justin Haley, this one's kind of big news. He'll have to start with a pass-through penalty. Now, of anyone in this entire field, he would be the one that benefits the most from carnage and cautions. Not even close. If this goes green, Haley is going to be so screwed and likely just stuck laps down all race. That is going to haunt him. If we get an early caution, he gets back on the lead lap, He has tons of upside, tons. Top 10 finishes at Gateway and Darlington. Really like seeing him do well at Darlington there. Was legit fast at Darlington. He's just really good at Darlington. Pretty mediocre, sub-mediocre at the rest of the intermediate tracks. He's been much better at short tracks recently. Just this form overall. I can't believe this is a Rick Ware car. Because he's been like, okay, he was 29th at New Hampshire last week. This is crap because look at the average running position. Oh, I don't have it on this copy. I have it on the main one. But he was running top 10, legitimately top 10, if not top 5, all race. This 29th place finish is so bogus. He was doing the same at Iowa. He drove up into the top 10 from like 15th or so, legitimately on speed early in stage 1 and was fast. He's had a fast car just overall. Like very impressive what we're seeing from him in this Rick Ware car. So if he can get on the lead lap, I like him the most of any of these deep punt plays, but it's a tough ask at what is most likely going to be a green flag race. He could get completely screwed. And it's not like he's showing the speed that we've seen him show at the shorter tracks in practice, but kind of is how it is there. Corey LaJoy, $5,500, just always finishes like 20th here, starting 21st. Just starting a bit too high for me. Not really huge on Spire this week. Kind of is what it is. Maybe like 1 or 2% playable if you're doing major MME or something. Harrison Burton, I can't support at all. He's been horrendous. 0 top 20 finishes at intermediate tracks this season. You'd have to go back, Jesus. You'd have to go back 16 intermediate track races to get to his top. Well, okay. His first finish is better than 20th, I guess. And even 20th, that's scoring you 28. That's kind of borderline. Maybe that would be decent enough if you need to go very, very low. But with all of the good like 8-7K range plays are on the slate, you don't really need to punt super low. It's not like a 400, 500 lap race where you just have to get super expensive guys. Although paying for Hamlin is kind of a pain this week, so you might have to dip into this area a little bit. But I don't like LaJoy for that. Definitely don't like Burton. Zane Smith is ultra scary, starting 36. He's almost certainly lap traffic. This is like kind of the avoid. This is just the avoid range here, like Herbst in the shitty Rick Ware car, starting 30th. Like he doesn't even have good place differential upside to work with. Same odds as Fincham, who's like multiple seconds off the pace. Super bad. He's going to finish like 36th at best. It leaves only like Hemrick that's kind of playable in this range. Now, Hemrick, I don't know what to make of him. He looked really bad. But like, my God, he has 5 top 20 finishes at intermediate tracks in 7 attempts. That's like really good. You got to show him a little bit of respect for that. And he started in the rear in a few of those too. So gonna need some shares. He's gonna be maybe like a core play for your Carnage lineups, I guess. But as for most of the time in this race, he's just going to be lap traffic starting second to last. Like this 30s range, I just do not like it anywhere as much as I do at other intermediate tracks. This got to be one of the worst intermediate tracks for them. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about this slate overall. For a win pick, I kind of came into this week, swapped it over to the Chastain avatar. Really thinking about giving it to Chastain here. His odds have jumped up to where he's like the 3rd favorite. It's almost kind of like a lame pick because his odds have jumped up so high. I actually feel like if we want to go a little bit deeper of a play here, Tyler Reddick, I think, could surprise some people here. I don't know about him winning, but I see him being a nice little lap leader play that not many people end up getting on ultimately. But yeah, my pick to win, I gotta stick with the Melon Man here. I think he goes back to back. It's an awesome track for him. We haven't seen him win in a while now. It'd be great to see him bounce back, and he's one to bounce back big. And if he can just get that lead, this is a track where if you can block at all whatsoever, no one's going to pass you. Sounds perfect for guys like Keselowski, guys like Chastain. He Give me some Ross Chastain there for my winner pick. So, yep. DFSArmy.com, promo code TACO if you want access to the domination station, the optimizer for the slate. You know, we've been killing all the lineups. Like, you can't go anywhere without seeing all of those helmets sprayed everywhere, all over the NASCAR leaderboards. You know where to find me. Taco DFS on Twitter. And yep, that'll do it. And I'll see you guys next week. Get those helmets up and good luck with this Nashville race. See ya.